Fantastic art is a broad and loosely defined art genre. It is not restricted to a specific school of artists, geographical location, or historical period. It can be characterized by subject matter, which portrays non-realistic, mystical, mythical or folkloric subjects or events, and style, which is representational and naturalistic, rather than abstract, or in the case of magazine illustrations and similar. In the style of graphic novel art such as manga, fantasy has been an integral part of art since its beginnings, but has been particularly important in mannerism, magic realist painting, romantic art, symbolism, surrealism and lowbrow. In French, the genre is called le fantastique. In English it is sometimes referred to as visionary art, grotesque art or mannerist art. It has had a deep and circular interaction with fantasy literature. The subject matter of fantastic art may resemble the product of hallucinations, and fantastic artist Richard Dad spent much of his life in mental institutions. Salvador Dali famously said, "The only difference between me and a madman is that I am not mad." Some recent fantastic art draws on the artist's experience, or purported experience, of hallucinogenic drugs. The term fantasy art is closely related, and is applied primarily to recent art inspired by, or illustrating, fantasy literature. The term has acquired some pejorative overtones. Fantastic art has traditionally been largely confined to painting and illustration, but since the 1970s has increasingly been found also in photography. Fantastic art explores fantasy, space fantasy, imagination, the dream state, the grotesque, visions and the uncanny, as well as so-called goth art. Related genres. Genres which may also be considered as fantastic art include the symbolism of the Victorian era and surrealism, works based on classical mythology, which have been a staple of European art from the Renaissance period. Also arguably meet the definition of fantastic art, as art based on modern mythology such as J.R.R. Tolkien's Middle-earth mythos unquestionably does. Religious art also depicts supernatural or miraculous subjects in a naturalistic way, but is not generally regarded as fantastic art. Historic artists and fine artists. Many artists have produced works which fit the definition of fantastic art. Some, such as Nicholas Roerich, worked almost exclusively in the genre. Others, such as Hieronymus Bosch, who has been described as the first fantastic artist in the Western tradition, produced works both with and without fantastic elements. And for artists such as Francisco de Goya, fantastic works were only a small part of their output. Others again, such as René Magritte, usually class the surrealists but use fantastic elements in the work. It is therefore impossible to give an exhaustive list of fantastic artists, but a selection of major and influential figures is listed below. Giuseppe Arcimboldo, Arnold Böcklin, William Blake, Hieronymus Bosch, Bruegel, Hans Baldung Green, Monsieur Desiderio, Marc Chagall, Richard Dad, Salvador Dali, Paul Delvaux, Gustave Doré, Max Ernst, Caspar David Friedrich, Henry Fuseli, Francisco de Goya, Matthias Grunewald, Thomas Hafner, Max Klinger, Gustave Moreau, Giovanni Battista Piranesi, Odilon Redon, Nicholas Roerich, Henry Rousseau, Clovis Trouille. 20th century. The rise of fantasy and science fiction. Pulp magazines demanded artwork to illustrate stories and to promote sales. This led to a movement of science fiction and fantasy artists prior to and during the Great Depression, as anthologized by Vincent Di Fate, himself a prolific SF and space artist. In the United States in the 1930s, a group of Wisconsin artists inspired by the surrealist movement of Europe created their own brand of fantastic art. They included Madison, Wisconsin-based artists Marshall Glazier, Dudley Harpiller and John Wilde, Carl Prebe of Milwaukee and Gertrude Abercrombie of Chicago. Their art combined macabre humor, mystery and irony, which was in direct and pointed contradiction to the American regionalism then in vogue. In post-war Chicago, the art movement Chicago Imagism produced many fantastic and grotesque paintings, which were little noted because they did not conform to New York abstract art fashions of the time. Major Imagists include Roger Brown, Gladys Nielsen, Jim Nutt, Ed Pashka, and Carl Wersam. Contemporary artists. Non-European art. Non-European art may contain fantastic elements, although it is not necessarily easy to separate them from religious elements involving supernatural beings and miraculous events. Sculptor Bunhu Asulala is a notable contemporary Asian fantastic artist.